We come to order, please. Bring the planning board meeting for the town of Norfolk to order. I'd just like you to know that the meeting is being videotaped and recorded for home consumption. If you're in the audience and you wish to speak, please use the microphone, not necessarily to amplify your voice here this evening, but to provide sound for the folks who view at home either currently or later. All right, our first order of business this evening is the continuation of the public hearing for Norway Farms 13-lot subdivision on 33 Medway Street. Rick, are you prepared to go?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Good evening, Rick Goodrow with the United Consultants here this evening with Rob and Jean Kane, owners of the property of the Norway Farm Development Project.
Yeah, I know. Just said that.
I tried. Good evening, Rick Goodrow with United Consultants here this evening with Rob and Jean Kane, owners of the property proposed for the Norway Farm Development Project. This evening, we have Mr. and Mrs. Kane here along with the neighbors from the area where the development is proposed. And this is a fairly unique situation in that most times when I'm working on a project of this type, being a subdivision, there's usually a lot of neighborhood opposition to the project and a lot of discussion between the neighbors and the board and the applicant as to things that can be done to help the neighborhood out when the development project is going forward. And in some cases, they're looking to not have the development project go forward. Over the last month or so, the opposite has happened here. The Kanes and the neighbors have come together, had numerous meetings, numerous discussions, and we've put together a proposal that reflects what the neighbors in that area from the Lake Street, Medway Street, Crestbrook Road locations are looking for this project. And Rob and Jean have agreed, and we've worked up a plan and some supporting documents that reflect what we're proposing. I do have copies of those supporting documents if the board members would like to see them.
We may already have them.
I think you do. I mean, I talked with Betsy, but I believe they're in your packets. Betsy, if you could open up the Norway Farms, third one down, the OS SAC. So what this proposal depicts is an open space development. And that open space development would consist of a cul-de-sac to provide access to the new building lots and the existing structures located on the property. Some of the things that the neighbors have requested, obviously, would be the cul-de-sac and not a connection through to Crestbrook Road. And what they've also requested, and the Kanes have proposed, is for sideway access, not only to create the loop that we originally discussed, but further to extend the sidewalk down to the Lake Street end of the Medway Street, as far down as we have the ability to, which would be these two lots here, and possibly further. We would need to evaluate the right-of-way width past that point. When the Kanes subdivided these lots out, they retained construction easements for the purposes of something such as this, which would be the sidewalk construction. Another feature that the applicant is proposing is to construct a bus stop shelter for not only the neighbors here, but anybody that would come to a bus stop location at the end of Tucker Road as its opposite our proposed roadway from Crestbrook to Lake Street. Pedestrian access could be had to that bus stop shelter. Additionally, we're proposing for a turnoff point here to provide for two vehicles to be parked, central mailbox location to be placed here, and also this would then begin potential access to open space through this area here. We would also be proposing two trails to be constructed, one from the roadway to the Crystal Lake area, and secondly, a walkway to be constructed in this location here to provide for future connection to the stub road that was left off of Canterbury. And lastly, what we'd be looking at for a feature would be to provide an emergency access connection between the two cul-de-sacs. So we're hoping that the board will look at this proposal, has had an opportunity to look at some of the supporting documents, and give us some feedback as to moving this forward so we could make a formal submission for an open space development project. We'd certainly be willing to talk further with the fire chief and/or police chief with respect to what they would be happy with for an emergency access connection, albeit gates, construction material. This could also be constructed in such a fashion to provide pedestrian access from the two developments, so that that loop that we discussed would be made. Crestbrook residents would be able to come and have access to the open space, to the bus stop, and other pedestrian access could be made up into the Canterbury development at a future date. This section is not under the control, to the best of my knowledge, and the research that's been done, this section is still under private ownership from the developer. The roadways have not been accepted in Canterbury, including this stub road. So we also had prepared a four-step plan, 4 plans defining each one of the steps for an open space development. So we could go to those, Betsy, please. Step 1. So what the bylaw suggests is a step-by-step process for developing an open space plan. And what they suggest is that you identify wetland resource areas, including floodplains, bordering vegetated wetlands, mature woodlands, and steep slopes. So what this plan depicts is the wetland areas here in blue. The green areas depict the forested area, as well as the steep slopes that are located here and in this area here. So we've identified what it is the open space bylaw is looking to protect, which are the wetlands, forested areas, steep slopes, and also wildlife corridors. This property is located within a priority habitat of the eastern box turtle. We have already gone through the process with Natural Heritage for a conventional subdivision plan. They were amenable to the development proposal. My guess is they would be much more amenable to an open space proposal that protects additional forested areas for the box turtle. Betsy, if we could go to step 2, please.
Before you go, is that white area in the center, is that all cleared?
That is all cleared. That's
No woods there?
that's the gravel area that exists there now.
Okay, thank you.
So secondly, what they've suggested is that we position the houses. Now, we've worked with Mr. Kane and landscapers with respect to house position, trying to get the houses so that they're facing solar south to provide for sun exposure to the houses. And that is overlaid on the protected areas so you can see where the footprints of the houses would be. Betsy, if you may, number 3. Then the third step is to lay out where the roadway would be, trying to minimize cuts and fills, minimize tree disturbance, tree clearing, and protect the natural features, steep slopes, and the wetlands. So again, we've tried to focus the development into the previously disturbed area with minimal tree cutting and steep slope disturbance and no wetland resource area disturbance. And then lastly, step 4 is basically outlining the lots around where the proposed houses and roadway system would be, which is what we've done here. So those are kind of the highlights from the document and the proposal that we put together. If the board's had an opportunity to look at any of the letters, look at the abutters letters with respect to their support of this proposal, or if the board has any questions with respect to the plans, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, I have a,
I'm sorry, Walter, go ahead.
I have a few. Just going back to the first drawing, the bus shelter for who? Kids?
Yes,
School?
yeah, school bus, shelter for the school bus children, so that they'd have a bus stop with a roof structure on it.
And in the plan, you say there's sidewalk access along the emergency access. Is that right? Is that what I heard?
That's correct. The emergency access could double as sidewalk access. So pedestrians could walk up, excuse me, you know, whatever we came up with for a surface for that.
Right, so the gate would just prevent vehicles from going through, except for the key and the emergency vehicles, but
Exactly.
pedestrians could walk through free, okay.
Exactly. The intent is to keep that loop for
Yep.
pedestrian access and then expand upon it, which we've proposed.
Betsy, can you go back to the first drawing, please? I think that's the first one.
Step one or the first drawing?
First one, the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, now, Rick, I think you said there were two paths that you were proposing. One is the green one I can see.
We have a green one here
I
that
couldn't
would
see
provide
that.
access towards the lake, and then a second green one here that would provide access up to Canterbury, the Canterbury development.
Yeah, and on that second one, obviously, the last little leg there is stairs, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to look at,
Might even be a ladder.
it's steep. I've walked it. I have walked up
Have you
there.
really? Yeah, okay, good.
It is steep,
Yeah,
no
I
question
come in
about
from
it.
the other way, so.
You know, I mean, we've shown that, obviously, when we get up there, we'd wanna pick a path
Okay.
in a little more detail that would minimize.
What are you proposing for the width of the emergency access?
What I have shown here is 20 feet, but again, we'd talk with the fire chief and the police chief to make sure that they would be happy with that. We'd like to make it as minimal as width as possible, but whatever they feel comfortable with. I do know the fire chief is protective of the paint job on his fire truck.
Yeah, very much so. Okay, now, we could go back to that one that showed the one with the houses on it. That's number 5 or whatever it was. There we go, yeah.
That one?
Yeah, that's fine. When you finish laying the lots in there and providing private property, how much of that green space is left for open space under this plan?
Considerable amount. I mean, if you go back to the fourth one, Betsy, which would show everything, you can see the lot lines are in here, back in here. And actually, if you went to the first plan, you could see it a little better. And the calculations are on the first plan that actually show, if we could, Betsy.
The very first plan, that one, Rick?
Yep. So we have the calculations, which I can't read. But I do have them in paper copy.
374,000 square feet.
So
At any rate, if you just point to the areas, what you're saying is, whoops, Bets has gone too big.
basically, anything outside of
Yeah,
that line is
yeah.
gonna remain green.
Yeah, yeah,
And some of the backs of the lots may, but the homeowners would have the ability to,
right.
you know.
Can you shrink it just a little, Bets, so we can see the bottom of it? Here we go, okay. So, that back section there with the wetlands,
Yep.
and can you actually walk all the way around from the street, all the way around to that back corner?
From this area.
No, we'll go out to the street to your left.
Here.
Yeah, walk in,
You could walk in here.
Yeah.
You could walk through here, through the uplands, then you get here and there's a wetland that cuts across here.
yeah.
And then the same thing here.
So you really can't get all the way up in the back there, huh?
No, I mean, we could look at, if that's something that the board was looking for, we could look at maybe getting around there.
Yeah.
I mean, you could pass it. I mean, we stepped across that wetland. It's a very narrow excavated channel that was probably excavated to drain these areas.
Well, there are very few people who can walk on water, so we'd have to do something.
Well, there's not typically water in that channel. In here, this is typically dry. When the water level comes up in these isolated ponds is when that is activated. But Rob, you may be able to speak better to that. I've never seen there ever be any water in that channel.
You mislead the viewer when you talk about access to a resource area. You have no authority to go near there. It's not part of the discussion of this board. This board is basically looking at an open space setup. So as far as what you're gonna do in there, at your preliminary discussion with me and the agent, you're not going near that resource area. So I'd like to just take that off the table and not talk about our anticipation of what we're gonna be doing or not, because we're probably gonna be doing nothing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'd have
That's
to
the
meet with
Conservation Board.
the Conservation Commission.
John, you have other
Yeah,
questions?
so I have basic questions. Open space plan, you gave the first part of the regulations, which is, well, we don't have to protect the wetlands because they're protected anyway. Normally, in the, we don't want to disturb any big inclines or grade changes, but they're hard to work in anyway. So basically, we're looking at open space, we're looking at minimizing the development of this particular parcel and leaving much as we can unencumbered for use for the town people with access to it. That being said, I mean, I don't have a plan here, so I'm a little disadvantaged. I don't work out of a Xerox, I can't read. But anyway, is this an R3 zone?
This is in an R1 zone.
R1 zone is what, 200-foot frontage?
30,000 square feet, 150 feet of frontage.
150 feet. How much is the frontage on these lots?
They vary from 244 down to, it's 50 feet is the smallest.
So again,
50 feet.
Rick, as you know, we have a break in the open space bylaw to limit your frontage. So right now, you're looking for, and I talked about this 2 meetings ago, you're looking for an open space plan with an extra lot, but the lots are bigger than open space lots by far. These are bigger than conventional lots by far. You're not minimizing the frontage because you've got these lots scattered all over the place on the parcel, and that's not the theory of open space. Open space is to have minimum frontages, smaller size lots, which are allowed, confine all the construction and all the development to one part of the parcel, and leave the other part unencumbered. So right now, as I look at the spacing of some of these lots, I mean, these lots are all in excess of what's allowed for an open space, I mean, for a conventional plan. And you're coming in here looking to not connect. I'm assuming you're looking for a waiver for that. And these lots, all that extra land there, that's not the theory of open space. This is a conventional plan with an extra lot in there.
Well, one of the big things in the open space provisions that makes it difficult to minimize the width of the lots without a staggering effect, houses behind houses, if you will, is the fact that the houses need to be 50 feet apart from each other,
Right, that's,
which these houses, in most cases, are
Right.
very close to.
but you've got 300-foot depth in some of those lots. You could stagger them. That's your job. When you come to this board for an open space plan and get certain benefits from it and relief from certain requirements for conventional zoning,
Sure.
your job is to make that so a bunch of, I mean, those two at the end of the cul-de-sac, those, to me, they shouldn't be anywhere near that other cul-de-sac. That other cul-de-sac should have a bunch of forestry, not even near the thing. And that access road there should be a little bit more creative, so it's meandering through, not a straight connection like somebody forgot to pave the road, you know? Again, I said this 2 meetings ago. I think Rob was here when I said it. To me, this has got nothing to do with an open space plan, personally.
Well, can we make some refinements?
Well,
Sure.
Absolutely, but you do,
Sure.
you know, if you take what I said, and you stagger the things, make the lots smaller, all of those lots that are that depth there, all of that could be to open space, for all of it.
Well,
Why should the lots be extra size? I mean,
you want to take, section of this off?
absolutely. Yeah,
To then create that type of open
That's
space?
exactly what I want.
We can surely- we can surely do
Some
that.
of those lots in the back cul-de-sac and bring them down, so you're.
This, yeah, I mean, we
You're
got a septic
clustering-
system in a house, we have setbacks to the open space, setbacks to the road. I mean, can we gain 10 feet? Sure.
I'm not talking 10 feet. I'm talking gaining a whole bunch of land that's going to be added to the open space for this parcel. Right, that's what I'm talking. What's the minimum lot size for an open space parcel, Ray?
20,000 square feet.
20,000, all right. And the minimum frontage is what, 50?
50.
All right, so you go take that and you take your 9 lots and you start doing math, and how many acres is the parcel?
Approximately 24.
Well, you know something? You gotta,
22,
when
excuse
you do I'm not saying to do 50-foot frontages, I'm not.
We can't.
I know you can't, but you can certainly do way better than that and leave a lot more of the open space as it should be in the theory of the whole regulation, because when you're saying, I'm giving you wetlands, I'm giving you high-grade areas, to me, you're not giving us anything. You gotta make a commitment to give decent land, right? The connections are super. I think that's a great idea, going up there to Canterbury and down here to the wetland area, but you gotta come up with a more conducive plan to what the open space is about. And I think a lot of that acreage that's there now should be left as open space. You know, you're asking the board, right, again, to not connect. So to not connect, you're talking about the value of these lots being substantially more because they're lots that are cul-de-sac, not in a throughway. You're asking for an extra lot. So when you come and you ask for those extra things, there's a duty assigned to that, and that is to make this thing as cool as it can, whether you bring in a landscape architect or not, and get this thing set up so that we're saving a lot more space. And if it were me, you've taken out the cul-de-sac on the entranceway, which is super, because for what one of the men said here before, that's a precious forested area with a lot of good specimen trees there, and that's great, that's being saved, but there's a lot more up where these two neighborhoods connect that I think could be saved by starting to stagger and make the lot sizes smaller. You could have open space that connects all the way around there if those lots weren't all, they're gonna be 300 or 400 feet deep, aren't they? Some of
Which
them?
ones? These lots here?
The ones at the top.
These lots?
No, the ones that are above, yeah.
These two are deep, yeah.
And the other ones are probably 300 feet deep, right? The ones below,
No, I don't believe they're that. These are
pretty deep.
fairly narrow. I mean, we tried to maintain 100 feet, so we'd have a 50-foot house building envelope.
But again, you know, I'm just saying the same thing that I said 2 meetings ago, that's all.
We can look at, reducing it.
To further John's point, you know, not to set this particular example I'm going to offer up as the epitome of what to do, but you did the work up on Holbrook Street, so you know what we're referring to.
We saved the whole we saved land on Holbrook Street all the way around the whole cul-de-sac.
Sure.
I mean, that's really, and they were staggered, and that really, in theory, is the epitome of an open space plan. And I believe that had, what, 8 lots?
9.
Right, same as this. All right, there you go.
Well, I mean, certainly the developer would be happy to shorten the road
I'm
and
sure Rob
decrease
would be,
the
yeah.
front.
You know, he's got to work with you to come up with something that
Oh.
confines all of that development area into a smaller section. And then
I'm
you
confident
still,
we can do that.
or then you still get the curve to, you're going to be asking for a waiver for a non-connection, which is, you know, another topic, so.
If the board has some interest in the proposal, we'll certainly go back to the drawing board to revise the lot
I have
layout.
great faith that you can make this into something that I think is worthy of an open space plan.
I think we were successful on
Yes, you were.
Brook Street.
Yes, you
I
were.
think that was a good project.
It was an excellent project.
It is.
It is, yeah. It's still ongoing.
I think John raised another point, which is, has been stated at least by me, the town generally supports connectivity, so if you're proposing something that's not going to connect through, then you got to offer something back, and open space concept will work if we can do some of the things that John's suggesting. But, and what's particularly interesting to me also is that this is a joint presentation here. That's of interest. Gentlemen, other questions?
I just had a quick question about
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't cut you. Did I cut
the
you?
mailbox hut.
Yes.
What's the idea around, do the people on Crestbrook have a mailbox hut, or they have individual mailboxes?
They're not allowed anymore, Greg.
Mailboxes?
Individual mailboxes aren't allowed in the subdivisions. They have to be boxes centrally located.
So, but my concern is it's, how far is that from Medway Street?
We put it back about 60 feet from Midway Street.
Is there gonna be like a cutout where cars can pull?
Oh,
off-
yeah, the orange is a paved turnout for the cars.
okay, I
So
thought
there'll
that
be
was
two
the
parking.
actual hut.
No, the hut's right there, it's pretty small.
Oh, okay, all right,
Yeah.
then
But that's turnout for
that's
two
a turnout,
vehicles.
okay.
My particular point on the connectivity is that the subdivision rules calls for neighborhood to be connected for pedestrian traffic and for street traffic. Yeah. Just like in many of the regulations, there are different situations, and, thinking this one through, or I think the connectivity to connect this neighborhood with 5 houses, really, I don't think that really serves the purpose of connectivity, because it's not like you're opening up a throughway to go from one part of town to another, or 150 lot subdivision to another. I think the connectivity factor, there's a lot of people that said, I don't think anybody's gonna come up and live on this side and go out the other way. So I know every board members have a different feeling on that, but as far as the reason why we have connectivity in the zoning, I would have no problem with 2 cul-de-sacs myself, because I don't think the connectivity really serves any big purpose. What I like is you've got the pedestrian connection between both neighborhoods, which is great. You get the fire safety access that you can make more attractive than a straight line, and that would give a safety purpose to the young man that has a disabled, sir, Mr. Riley, I didn't see you there, sorry, sir. Give him an extra egress there for public safety, with this little standard tree crosses the road you can't get through. So in all of that parts, I think planning-wise, this is a good plan, but I really think that you're gonna have to take a little bit of time and skill and create this so we have a more substantial piece of land and, for the town, and those lots become shrunk. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at, Rob? The same thing I mentioned a few, and I don't think it's a hard thing to accomplish. I think all of those backyards are gonna be wasted anyway by the people that buy the homes, but there should be a big bulk of wooded area left between the end of this cul-de-sac and the existing cul-de-sac that's the neighborhood now called Crestbrook.
And we also need to be mindful of us on Lake Street, that we don't push it all the way back into our backyard.
Yeah, well, they've already accomplished part of that by
Sir,
taking it.
Sir, if you're gonna comment, we
Okay.
need you to use the mic.
But anyways, we already accomplished that by taking that cul-de-sac out. That was one of the things that I think was a plus in this, because we're staying away from that totally. So the plan is progressing, to me, in a positive way, but I still think to give somebody more valuable lots and an extra lot, I think you've got to do a little bit more work of the design of the thing. And of course, you make this roadway smaller at the price of roads, you're gonna save money there also. So it's really in your best interest to try to make that road smaller. And again, we do with the low-impact drainage.
Yep. No,
We're definitely receptive to redesigning it. My thoughts on the way we laid it out was that we were in compliance with the upland wetland ratio over the
Technically, you
whole
are.
property.
You're right.
But originally our landscape architect years ago had designed the front to back, the staggered house. And sort of perceptually, I was trying to avoid that this time, because the people that live in back kind of always had the feeling that they're looking into the back of somebody's home.
Right,
And the people
right.
that lives in
Yeah.
front always kind of feel like they have somebody
Right, but
looking at them.
But with the amount of
And I was
land
just
you,
trying to
with
avoid
the
that.
amount of land you have, Rob, here, for 9 lots, 24 acres,
Yep.
you can stagger these, you can angle the frontage on these things, on the frontage of the house, angle those, and jog them, and not have a pork chop lot situation. You can have it so they're staggered, but they still can be a lot more appealing driving down the street, and not have to have somebody in your backyard. I know that can be accomplished. You got a lot of space there.
Yeah, no, we'll go back and work on it again.
And as you guys probably know, this filing is, we're gonna be redone all over again. So this is sort of like an informational thing, because we don't have the 3 votes that's required for a subdivision approval, because one of our members has resigned and moved out of town, out of state actually. So right now, we do not have 3 votes to approve a subdivision site plan, so they would have to start over. And if this is a special permit, they're gonna need 4 votes or a supermajority on a special permit for an open space. And where we have, and this is kind of something to keep in mind, where we have one member that's recused herself, our chairman, for this meeting, you're gonna have to win all 4 votes. So it's a high, it's a high bar, but we're gonna be starting this all over again from scratch. My suggestion, what I mentioned to our chief, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, that we waive all the fees for this new filing.
I
So we
think
don't-
that's appropriate.
It's nothing to do with the
Yeah,
incumbent, with
right.
the applicant here. So we
Agreed.
certainly could waive all the fees involved. He just got stuck in the middle of a transition, unfortunately. But I don't think it's lost, because I think having this meeting was good, having, going over all these ideas, so it helps move it along.
I agree.
Anything else, Kevin?
No.
Do you want to open up the?
Yeah, I would. Anyone else in the audience care to comment or ask a question?
I just have one question, just on the plan in general. I mean, I think this is,
Identify yourself, please.
I'm Alex Fritz, I'm down at the corner on 29 Medway Street. This is the first time I've heard about the bus stop. I really like that idea. Can you just talk a little bit more about what it is? So is it going to be like kind of just like a tent, kind of something overhead so the kids can sit there, or is it going to be a seating area, or is it going to be stand-up, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, we'd be looking at a roof shelter with a, a little seating area in it. So that they could be out of the weather and the snow, rain situations,
Just get out of the rain. I'm not.
as they're waiting for the bus. Right.
Corner of Tucker.
Opposite Tucker. Tucker's right here, the proposed road would be here, the bus stop would be right here. The bus shelter, excuse me, would be right here, just behind the sidewalk.
So that would be controlled by the homeowners association, so you'd be involved in getting a homeowners association for the maintenance of that. So that's a whole extra step.
How big is it? How many kids could fit in there?
We can make it for whatever size is necessary.
Two kids? Or, I mean,
No,
Make it nice.
I'd say probably 8 by 12, something along those lines, maybe 8 by 10, somewhere around there. I mean, we haven't,
I
got to
understand
nailing patterns. We conceptually wanted to go over this. We've got some marching orders, I think, and
Did you think you were gonna have an advantage by not bringing us a plan for the table?
I have one. I colored it for you. I know how much you enjoy
I
that.
don't like the colors, you know
I know
that.
that.
Rick and I did
Ray?
talk, and he was planning on having the board up there, so.
You have a comment, Ray?
Yeah, my comment basically goes back to the four-step process. And looking at, if you're gonna be reconfiguring and looking at some of the areas where houses are proposed, you've got some areas where there's open space or currently treed, forested areas, and you've got 3 homes that are proposed in those areas towards the front of the property. And then, as John had mentioned, you've got a couple of houses sitting on the slope or very close to the slope towards the back right. So if you're looking at reconfiguring, I would spend a little bit of time looking at those properties or those buildings and trying to pull them back into the cleared areas as best you can, so that you can keep some of that open space. And it might actually lend itself to, I hate to say it, but trails all the way around the whole place if that's even possible. But that's another discussion for another night. But more importantly, I think it's just trying to keep to the spirit of the bylaw and trying to stay out of those green areas.
You're right, Ray, this could actually have an open space trail around the whole perimeter of this property.
Sure.
I'm looking at it right now.
I'm not sure that would be a goal, but that's
Right.
certainly an opportunity.
Yeah, no, but it's similar to Holbrook Street, what you did up there.
Right.
You can get
Same
around
thing.
it.
Another thing I wanted to mention is, as you start to look at this, the bylaw says that you have to have an average of 100 feet frontage without the development, which is going to work against you when you're trying to make the frontages work out. Well, some can go down to 50, but you're going to have to try and make that.
Yeah, if you looked at the first plan, it summarized the lot areas
Yep.
and the frontages,
Okay.
so we could see what that average was. We went through that exercise. But yeah, you're right, the average has to be 100 of the lots.
Yeah, which can be very challenging as you're trying to squish everything together.
Yeah, so, some were down to, obviously this one's large.
Right.
I'm sure Rob would be happy if we could shorten the road a couple hundred feet. Now, we wouldn't have to pay for a couple hundred feet of road construction.
It's nice to make Rob happy, but we should go by the
But-
bylaw too.
No, but by so doing, we can, pull those in and do some different things, I think we've got an idea.
But you'd also have to add a couple hundred feet of roadway for the emergency access, so you don't have to pave it, but
Correct. I mean, depending on what that material is, it's certainly less expensive to construct in a road with a sidewalk and, drainage.
yeah, but you are going uphill, so you gotta do some
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
good work.
Oh, absolutely. No, there'd be some earthwork involved in that, absolutely.
Anyone else have any other comments? I'll entertain a motion to continue the, well, we gotta start again, don't we?
We would have to
Yeah.
do anything.
Start again, you don't have to do
This
anything,
is
right?
information.
Okay.
meeting.
So this is an information session.
That's it.
If we're all set, then we'll move on to the next topic.
You guys will have to withdraw your application so that it can be,
Draw that project.
Which we would
Yes.
accept without
So-
prejudice.
Yes. As the owner of the property, I'd like to withdraw at this point in time without prejudice.
Someone want to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second, anybody? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is a vote. Thank you.
Very good. Thank
See
you
you
for your
next
time. And the encouragement.
Mr. Griswold, good job as usual. Good job as usual.
thank you all. Have a good
Yep.
night. See you guys.
Good night.
Hi, Michelle, how are you?
The chairwoman is back.
Welcome back.
Sarah back there.
Got here earlier than I thought,
It's great.
but I didn't see it.
There was cake before. Greg ate the rest of it.
Why you look so happy?
He's very happy.
Is that your hat under the chair, sir?
No. Right behind you, kinda.
Just gotta run it out.
It's actually empty.
No,
No, no,
No,
no,
not
there's a
that,
hat
on the floor, on the floor.
That's the microphone thing. Thanks.
Gary?
I'm not sure if there's going to be, someone told me to stop down, that there might have been something related to the roads in
We're gonna,
Fox Run. Okay.
yeah, so since we have a request for continuance on the next agenda item,
Mhm.
we'll have to vote to bring that on next meeting. I do wonder if we want to leave a slot open for Norway Farms that we didn't technically talk about an opening for them, but, or we could make this one first and followed by Norway Farms.
That's probably the best.
Yeah, because we can't guarantee they're going to come back next month, although most likely they
They'll
will.
be ready.
Yeah,
All right,
this one moves up.
Yeah,
so
okay.
let's go for a motion to continue 194 Main Street, and we'll do it for 7 o'clock, and it looks like we are talking about June 13th.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we have a handful of new business items, but it sounds like you are here, sir, to talk about Fox Run, or hear about Fox Run anyway?
there was going to be discussion.
Yeah, yep, we have a lot of new business items. It's a little further down, but we can move it up next, if that would be helpful.
I had corresponded with some of the neighbors on Fox Run, and I wasn't sure who was coming, if it was you or,
It may just be me.
Okay,
I didn't think it was
I-
going to be, but that's okay.
yeah, I did not want to have the conversation and miss somebody. I told them, chances are it'll be after 8 o'clock before we
Okay,
got
that
to
could
it.
be the case too. And I don't mind waiting, but
I see.
we could do it now.
So you want to hold off a little
If
bit
we
in
could
case they
wait
might
until
come.
8
Yeah.
o'clock, and then, I apologize if it was for nothing.
Yeah, so for, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Fox Run is the large development that's partly in Rentham and partly in Norfolk, and still under construction, although almost done.
Getting there.
And it's been a long-term development for years, even before I was on the board, so So yeah, lots of complicated things to deal with along the way. All right, so do we want to talk about board reorg or save that as well for a little bit later?
Might as well.
Might as well. All right. Well, I wanted to start the conversation with the board, thinking the larger board, all of us included, and was wondering if you wanted to share your views.
Could we, before we do that, if we're going to start with, can we clear up, what is your status at the moment, sir?
Right now, I am currently still the associate member of the board.
Okay.
A letter's been submitted, though. Have we heard any feedback
I
on the
think
letter?
it's, the Board of Selectmen meet next, I believe, the 24th?
I think so.
Yes.
And they would be taking that as a vote at that time to,
We're supposed to vote on
I
it
was just gonna say,
tonight.
yeah, we
The
need
Board
to
of
vote.
Selectmen will be voting on it next week.
Okay.
Right, right.
so that
Even though-
we can vote and give our
Correct.
recommendation to them, to then
Right.
make
Right.
It was
action
actually
next
a
week.
moot point, because if everybody here has got consensus, then they only have 3 votes, so, but we do have to formally wait until they take their vote
Right.
next week.
Right.
All right, so we'll get to that as part of it for sure then.
Okay.
Are you okay? You comfortable with?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I'm
Ray
completely
has
comfortable.
some news for the
Well,
board.
Where's the words? Through a lot of discussion with my family and discussion, I decided to take another job. And I will be here for the next planning board meeting, but I will, as of the 15th of June, I will no longer be working for the town of Norfolk. I'm happy, but I'm also very sad because I've really enjoyed working here. The people that I've worked with are wonderful. This is a great town. I only wish the commute was not so far. And ultimately, that's the decision was based on commute. Getting home at 7 o'clock most nights is difficult at times. With a young family, still trying to be there for everybody. So this decision was made solely based on that. Nothing against the town. I think this is a wonderful town. I would give anybody my highest recommendation to come and work here, because I think by far this town's got a lot going for it, and the people here are the best, really. So thank you, and I really feel a heavy heart just even making this announcement.
So we owe you a big thank you. It's the first professional planning position that the town's had, at least in my experience. And it's, there were a number of years that we met as a board without this position in the town, and somehow we did it, but I can't quite remember how we did it. Without Ray, to be quite honest with you, we lean on you so heavily. And so thank you from all of us for
My pleasure.
your guidance and your professionalism and your knowledge. It's so valuable, and I don't know what we're going to do without you. We'll miss you tremendously, so thank you.
And it's been fun.
Best of luck, Ray.
Thank you very much.
Sorry to lose you.
So we, in the past, would sometimes use a planning consultant. His name is Gino Carlucci.
Carlucci, yeah.
And I talked to Ray earlier today, and we had chatted about, maybe seeing if Jack Hathaway would support getting Gino back here, at least on an interim basis. I think the town's plans are to replace Ray's position. But even things like writing up decisions and obviously advice on procedural or bylaws and things like that, we're really going to need the help.
Yeah.
So we'll see where this all goes, but
I have reached out to Gino. I wasn't able to get in touch with him, but we will speak tomorrow, so.
it would be great. He has history, and if not, Gina, we'll probably have to think about somebody, because like I said, we're going to need some of that support. So-
Yeah, Gina would be good. I mean, he knows the rules and regs pretty well,
Yeah.
and has been very helpful to the board in the past, so
Right.
that's one of the reasons we were able to get along without a planner. right?
Exactly, yeah. Right. Yeah, okay. So on to the organization of our board. So every year, this time of year, when a new election happens, we talk about the structure, the different roles and responsibilities on the board, and so it's that time of year again. We like to change the chair, vice chair yearly, just to kind of keep things fresh and bring new perspective in. So that's normally a tradition. On occasion, we keep somebody in their seats, but usually we rotate things around. So we have a new member, and we usually like to take this meeting as well to welcome our new members. And then just talk about what people are interested in, and ultimately we vote as a board for who's going to hold what role and responsibility. So I think, just to start with the easy one, I think I'd like to ask how everybody feels about nominating or voting in Greg as our...
Secretary.
As a member first, as an official member.
Push that job to pretty quickly.
So since we have had a member
Can I get you some
resign,
coffee?
and the resignation happened technically after the election, we have an open seat, and so the way the rules are is that us, along with the Board of Selectmen, can make a recommendation outside of the election period. And
And the junior member typically is the secretary, and you've technically got seniority on him, you see, technically.
Technically.
For a week.
I like that word right now.
so anyway, before we get to the roles, just wondering how folks feel about making that recommendation.
I would
Greg
support
to the
that,
Board of
absolutely, I would
Selectmen.
support that.
I think you've been really dedicated to us, and I think
Happy to be
it's-
here, I'm happy to do it.
I think we have to take a formal vote.
Yes, exactly. So just checking on the interest of folks first. So does somebody actually want to make a motion to, I guess we'd be making a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen that Greg become an official member.
Yeah,
Motion to appoint Greg Damiano to fill the term of Jen
West.
West as a planning board member.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will forward our recommendation and vote to Board of Selectmen, and hopefully you'll hear from them
Thank you very
next
much.
week. And then we have to work on finding an associate member, because typically we like to have a full board plus an associate member, which is
Isn't it the
really
associate member's
best.
job? Former associate member?
Actually, it was your job. Already trying to delegate out, huh? Get rid of them all. Okay, and then in terms of roles and responsibilities, yes, typically the most junior member does get elected as the secretary. The job of the secretary is to open hearings. I like to call them bedtime stories. Also to work with Betsy on the review of minutes and give them a once-over and then basically recommend them to the board for acceptance. Other than that, it's a pretty
Well,
straightforward
There's one other
job.
duty that Betsy typically drops a file about this thick of
That's true.
correspondence
That's
in
true.
front of you every meeting, and you thumb through it and find the one document in there that really needs to be brought to the attention of the board, but other than that,
Yeah, most of it is just notices of other towns who are having hearings and, and meetings and stuff like that. So I'm curious, if anybody would want to think about Kevin as the secretary?
oh, I thought you were going to ask our really junior member to
Well,
be
I'm not a board member yet, so you can't.
Yeah, technically he's
Yeah,
not a board
that's
member.
true.
yet.
Well,
Until next
An
week.
an interim secretary then?
An associate secretary.
Sure, we could do
No,
that.
no, I'm talking about Kevin.
Oh, because you want him to have to pay his initiation price? He'd sneak in as a board member without ever being secretary. You think that's unfair, huh?
Yeah,
It's pretty strategic,
I
Greg,
paid my
actually.
associate member dues.
you did indeed.
Definitely. Yeah, I was thinking Kevin, but, we could call it interim. We could always revisit board organization at any
I think
point.
once is plenty.
Yeah. What do folks think?
So
I'm
you-
happy to fill whatever position needs to be filled.
Okay.
And we'll nominate Kevin Calcutt to be secretary to the board.
And I would second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So the only other roles is chair and vice chair. We don't have another role in there, right? Somebody gets off easily. I know that I have had some conversations with John about an interest in being the chair. I know he's very knowledgeable about the rules and the regs. I think he'd make a great chair. I don't know where you sit, Walter, in terms of your feelings on it. I haven't spoken with you about it, but I would support John if he was interested in the chair, but curious to know your thoughts
Well,
as well.
that would be fine with me. I'm happy to be vice chair if that's what the board so determines. I would prefer not to be chair, largely because even after 4 years, there's so much to learn that I still feel like I'm on a learning curve. Well, you can relate to that.
I can. I can.
And because John has been in the development game for a number of years, he's quite knowledgeable
So
about that.
knowledgeable, yeah.
On the other hand, John also participates in another town board, and
We have talked about
asking
that.
him to be the chair of this board and participate in the other board, whether as chair or not, that's a lot to ask of a guy, so
Yeah.
he has to smile and be willing to do it. If
Yeah, I'm trying to coerce somebody else to take in
the other one, I got you,
Yeah,
okay.
told him
It's a lot.
he has to quit that job if he's gonna take this job.
Yeah, that's too much.
So any other further discussion or questions or comments or recommendations? I'm going to move that we elect John to be the chair for the upcoming year. I can
Well,
make that motion, right?
I would second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then
So
if
you're
you'd
not
like
gonna
to...
be around then?
It's probably a good thing.
And then if you're interested in vice chair, I think you've done a tremendous job in that too. You've filled in for me quite a bit, which has been very helpful. And you're always so good about getting people to, the most effective person we've had about getting them to speak into the mic. It's great. Tough job, no one ever listens.
It's called being a nag, that's what it's called.
How about a motion to elect Walter to continue on as the vice chair?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we'll finish up this meeting under the current organization, and then these will go into effect for the next meeting, if that sounds good to everyone.
Sounds good.
Very
All
much so.
right. Great. Good? Miss anything?
Congratulations, John.
Okay. I can quickly go over the tree removal, and that will probably bring us to about 8 o'clock. if you want.
Sure.
Okay. So I met with Bob McGee, and he was looking to review one specific area in town that he's looking to make some sidewalk updates. He's actually looking in 2 areas to make sidewalk updates. One is along 115, and the other is along Medway Branch from Tucker to the DPW transfer station. So we really reviewed the Medway Branch one in more detail. The reason being is actually 115 is not a scenic byway. It's not a scenic roadway. It's one of the few that we don't have in
Because it's a
town.
state road?
Yes. Yep, there's a handful of roads that don't fall under that. And so technically, he doesn't have to come in front of the board for any kind of a hearing to review work that he's doing along that. But he did still inform me of what's going on there. And essentially, it was talked a little bit about at town meeting. There's a section from Needham Street up to the Union Street Rotary
That he's working on, yeah.
that has a sidewalk right now,
Yeah.
but the sidewalk is at the same grade, same topo, if you will, as the
Street.
street.
Yeah.
And there's no granite curbing. So you know how much Bob loves monolithic curb, but Bob is the first to say that on a high-speed road, such as 115, he likes to see granite curbing to protect the pedestrian.
Straight up granite.
Straight up vertical granite, yep, from the traffic. And then so that he can also raise the elevation of the sidewalk a bit so that they're at a little bit different topo than the roads. And it doesn't feel like you're right there walking on the road. So that's his preferred way of doing a sidewalk in an area that is that busy. But that particular stretch of road is somewhat challenging in terms of the topos and in terms of the
Layout of-
location, the layout
yeah,
of the
the
road.
road
He's
within the
got
right-of-way, yeah.
quite a large right-of-way, but the way the road was constructed years and years ago, it really pinched it on one side of the road. And so he's got a lot of right-of-way on the Audubon side of the street, but it's very difficult to start spreading over to that side of the street because it's heavily wooded and you have the Audubon there. So he is looking to work still on the side where the sidewalk is, make some improvements to make it more safe, make a grass strip to
Yeah,
actually be
yeah.
a buffer, because there is not one now. And there's a grass strip further down on 115, so it will tie in both aesthetically, it would be an improvement in terms of safety. But he likely cannot get the granite curbing that he'd like to have. He probably can't do all the elevation change that he'd like to have. So still some improvements, not perfect. So he's trying to make improvements without having too much significant impact in that area. So that's just really informational. He doesn't owe us any review of that, but he just wanted us to be aware of what he's doing.
Well, one question. As I recall, when the road was improved from Foxborough all the way up to Needham Street, didn't the state do that work?
State highway.
Yeah, well,
They ended at the end of the state highway.
so it is not a state highway from Needham Street to the, okay,
That's why they stopped.
okay. That's not a state highway. Okay, fair enough. A different aspect of tree removal?
So the other one we looked at was Medway Branch.
No.
Oh, are you asking about the 115 still? That one?
No, this one, which was the notice we got from Eversource that said they were going to cut down trees And so we were gonna go look at them, and
I
lo and
actually
behold,
did not
there
raise.
they are,
yeah,
cut down.
Right, and I did not bring that up with him, you're right.
So.
But I think his reason for calling me and meeting with me is, I think, I don't know. I don't know if it had something to
You
do with
made,
this.
we
or
made
not.
the mistake that the utilities ask us before they do something. In my experience, the utilities do whatever they want.
And then they tell us,
Tell
maybe,
you later, maybe.
maybe, right. And this was one of the maybes that they told us, yeah.
Right, so he's trying, I think, be a little bit more proactive on some of this stuff
So
that
I go-
he's in
yeah.
control of anyway.
I
So-
go out there looking for trees, and I find stumps, so.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. So Medway Branch is, again, from Tucker to the DPW. There is a sideway on the rest of Medway Branch from Tucker going back out to Rockwood. So again, it would be looking to continue that sidewalk. Also, the road has fallen in disrepair from that section of Tucker, Medway Branch, from that section of Tucker down. So it's in need of some paving anyway and repairs. For the most part, the sidewalk on that side of the street is pretty straightforward. There's an area in front of the senior center where there's a slope that's pretty steep, and he's gonna have to carve away at that hillside to get the sidewalk in, but it is town land and it's town property. It doesn't really affect a private residence, if you will. There is one residence next to the senior center, which will also have a little bit of disturbance in front of it. Bob hasn't even spoken to them yet, so maybe they're watching tonight, but there are no significant trees in front of that house. The majority of them are saplings. And there is quite a bit of buffer. It would not be carving out all of it. So for the most part, it's a very straightforward, I mean, as far as sidewalks go and the kind of impact we're talking, it's pretty darn straightforward.
Yep.
And the amount of carving and extreme work he has to do is on town land, so that mitigates a little bit of the disruption to private residences. He will be coming in front of the board for an official tree hearing, and he'll walk us through this plan, and he'll show us the trees specifically for removal. But he just wanted to give me an idea so that I could share it all with you, so you knew where he was going with it, heads up, and things like that.
Yep.
So. Good? Questions?
None.
8 o'clock?
Sounds like it's Fox Run time.
It's run time.
So, Fox Run, I had a call from, was it you?
It wasn't me, it was Ken, I can't think of his last name unfortunately, but
Yeah.
he lives right on Warren Drive. I live on Warren Drive.
Carvalho.
Yes, I know where you live. So I had a call from Ken, who lives on Warren Drive, and he was concerned about, first thing was the broken pipes that exist in the Fox Run development. They were having a neighborhood meeting, and you can fill in some of those spaces that I leave. Pulte was looking to turn over the management of the association to the neighborhood, and they were concerned. In the meeting, there was discussion about what's going on with the road, what's going on with the pipes that are in the road that are broken. I think most, if not everybody, now knows that there's broken pipes that were installed, and there is no solution at this point. I did send an email off to John Engdahl, who is my contact with Pulte, asking him what the status is. He said he would have something by the end of last week, which is curious. And would like to set up a meeting with the planning board to discuss what other options that they have, the engineering options that they've come up with,
Aside from replacing the pipes.
aside from replacing the pipes.
He already knows that that probably isn't going to be acceptable.
I think he does. When we had a very frank conversation months ago about this, and that's how I believe we left it with Pulte.
Yes.
So at this point, maybe it's time to call Pulte in and have a conversation with them about what are you
Plans
doing.
are.
I know the neighbors in Fox Run would certainly love to know what's going on, and they also have their own issues. If there's cracked stormwater pipes, there may be cracked sewer pipes. And that's certainly a concern for them, because if they do accept those lines, they accept them with the deficiencies and faults that exist
Who
right now.
accepts them?
The neighbors in the neighborhood association.
In your association, right, in your document, are you aware, is there a percentage that Pulte has to own to keep control, and when it is below that percentage, then they can turn it over to you at their option?
You're gonna need a mic, sorry. So just so people at home can hear you. You should, yes.
I'm Gary Searle, and I live at 245 Warren Drive. Pulte has long since passed the point.
That
Yeah,
criteria?
100% of the houses have been sold at this point. There's no construction. It's all, the last thing that needs to be done is really just the road. They probably have to replace some trees that died, that they planted late, things like that. They have second coat on some people's driveways, but almost all of that stuff is minimal, and the big job is the road itself. I attended the homeowners meeting last week, and I raised the issue at the homeowners meeting, as did a number of other people. And I had been to previous homeowners meetings, and the road was discussed each time. And when I looked today on the meeting minutes for this meeting, so I went back all the way to November before I could find it, listed it. I don't think I missed anything. It was the November 10th meeting, so that's like 6 months ago. They were down here discussing it. At that time, I heard a story that said these runoff pipes, and it was only runoff pipes, were installed. So it was a process issue that I left with the understanding this process that they used was incorrect. They put pipes down on top of ledge, and there was no crushed stone.
That was a whole different matter.
And there, afterwards, heavy trucks went across the roads, and when the town was doing an inspection, they sent a camera system down or some probe down the lines, and they found breaks, and I heard the number at least in 4 areas. I thought that all the pipes, the road was supposed to be dug up. This is what was discussed at a homeowners meeting, maybe 6 months ago as well. The timing was about the same. They were gonna dig up the road, replace all the pipes end to end just on the Norfolk side, and we were gonna be disrupted as soon as the weather got warm. The weather's warm, it's been warm for a while, and so people started asking, and especially at the homeowners association meeting, and the 4 people that were there from Pulte, they described the issue in a different way that I hadn't heard before. This time they were saying there could have been a few faulty pipes that were put in the ground, and the thing that strikes me, I don't know if I'm doing that, the thing that strikes me most about that is that they have not determined root cause of a problem. And if you don't have root cause, I don't know what they're coming down to offer you for solutions. I can believe that you can do an end-to-end solution if you want to rip up the whole road. They did not have that as a mindset. Their belief is that they're going to go and replace pipe only in the areas where it broke. And they thought that that was acceptable. They said they dug a trench. They had people come from the town. They went down and looked at the pipe, and they said everybody looked at this broken pipe, and no one could determine what could have been the cause. And my comment is, you just keep ripping up pipe until you find the true cause, because you need to know root cause before you fix things.
What?
Anyone from the planning board?
We had, first of all,
Any of that?
the November meeting was in a whole different temporary issue that couldn't be corrected.
Because of the weather.
That's all done. This is a systematic failure of the drainage. And they're right. And his number that he gave us and what the DPW sort of reinforced, 70% of all the drainage pipes are cracked at some stage.
Oh, he didn't state that, okay.
They come with solutions like putting liners inside the pipes. Problem is, liners aren't structural. There's a structural problem going on. The camera was done a year ago. We don't know if more pipes have cracked since then. We don't know if they start to put liners inside, whether they'll be able to even push them through. So basically, there's a guess between the meeting that we had with them, right? That there's probably, where they were packing those trenches with crushed ledge, there probably was a settling, because shale turns to powder, probably settling underneath and on top, because these things, they have them systematically cracked in 70%. It's almost like you have to try to do it. So we don't know whether that's got more or less, but when Ray and I met with John, and he seemed to be a lot more cooperative then, I think he understands that we want the only way we can ensure that they're right before the town accepts the road is replace them all. And yes, he did do 2 test cases, and luck for them, those were both fine. But that really means nothing. And at that stage, we still haven't got to the point where we checked any of the water lines. And they're sort of, you have water gates in there that are in the middle of ledge. So how they can be maintained or repaired or moved, I have no idea. And that was spotted before. So they sort of, I thought they were coming back to us. And did you go to that meeting with the company that does the liners and the
Yes,
pipes,
that was part of that meeting.
trying to
It was
sell
Virginia.
that, but I think there was consensus, at least only Ray and I talked with John, that it's structural, really, we don't know what's going wrong, so how can you say putting a liner in does anything? Plus, it changes the capacity of the drainage. So all the studies really are all altered, right? So now that I heard that they're looking to take the homeowners association to you folks, the good news is we have an $850,000 or so bond on the roadway. I'm not sure the cost to redo that, but the interesting question is is there still a smell coming from that sewer treatment plant?
Yes,
All right,
that was a big issue at the last homeowners.
all right, because
meeting.
that's something that's got to be corrected, but basically, I believe even though you have the association under your control, I think that they're still responsible to maintain the roads. I don't know what your document looks like.
That's correct, as far as like
Correct.
snow removal and, sure.
So they still have to get the roads to an acceptance stage, and they have to do the snow removal and all that. So you guys aren't responsible for that when you take over the association? Is that what you
No, we are
think?
not. That's correct. They
All right.
they
All
will
right.
maintain roads and fix anything that needs to be.
All right, so that's a
corrected
real,
before they
that's a
leave the
real
site.
big thing. So you're just taking over smaller things than common areas and that, because all of your sewer pipes in the roadway all have to be eased out of our acceptance of the roadways, and that becomes, all of those sewer pipes are part of your association's upkeep. So you folks are gonna have an easement in our roadways, just like the gas company does. So obviously, you've got a private sewer treatment plant. Your pipes are in our roads, but they're your responsibility. So down the road, if something happens with those pipes, you're responsible, you're allowed to go into the roadway and dig it up and correct it, but it's your burden to fix it, to repave it.
I don't think anybody in the homeowners association
No,
realizes
no,
that
no.
Right.
they will inherit
Planning board looked
the.
at that, we discovered, that was at Michelle about a year or two ago, during all the drainage thing, we found the drainage issue, we found, wow, that
Yeah,
we,
it's probably 2 years.
all of the easements that are prepared, the subdivisions initially formed to be turned over to town, found it talking about it, and I forget who mentioned it, but one of the pipes in the roadway, the sewer pipes, has nothing to do with the town, that's private property. So they were gonna make those corrections on the easement transfer to get the road accepted, so that was part of your association. So you folks will be responsible for the sewer treatment plant and all the lines. So it really becomes important that those, I think those lines are probably, are they PVC lines?
I don't know.
If they're PVC lines, it really gets a little unnerving, because if concrete RCP pipes are cracking, sewer pipes, you're probably not gonna get a smell when they're down that far, but, who knows the condition of that?
So I'm not sure what I missed.
I'm sorry,
My name's
yeah.
Ken Cody.
Yeah,
And
just-
I live at 190 Warren Drive. So I think I called and, last week before the meeting with the homeowners association. So basically, what I'm concerned about is, Pulte is, Pulte's trying to deny that there's a problem, essentially. You guys have evidence, right, that there was a crack in the pipe. I'm not sure if we already covered this, cracks in various pipes, right, drainage pipes. So that happened in September of last year. You discovered the cracks in the drainage pipes approximately.
Yeah, you have to camber your pipes before road acceptance, and we wanted it done because of the history of the roads, before they put the second coat of pavement on. If you're gonna do any digging, right, the better time to do it is before you put the finished pavement on.
Absolutely,
So
no.
they actually hadn't they done a camber study on that 2 years ago, and it was fine?
Yes.
But things got delayed, so the first camber study a few years ago showed them okay. And then, when it was coming more to fruition, have them accepted, they did a current one, which was the one we're talking about from a year ago or so. And all of a sudden, John from Pulte comes in and said, well, this is, excuse me, kind of unusual, 70%, right of all the pipes, right, are cracking. And not to say that if that was the case, not to say that right now, if you went back and cambered it again, who knows what type of process is going on there because of the installation. There could be more that are cracked by then. So we never thought putting a sleeve in was the right thing for the
So
town.
70% of the drainage pipes are cracked.
Correct.
And that's going all the way up Warren Drive, all the way across all of Norfolk
Right, we notified Rentham, but I don't think Rentham is,
They had already
Just-
accepted, but it's still interesting what you were saying before, John, because I think all the homeowners believe, because I never saw anything in our
Exactly.
paperwork that homeowners association would have ever been responsible for the pipes in the road, because we all assumed that the town takes over the road at some point. So this is kind of new, this will be news to everybody.
either they systematically did not put that in, right, or they just weren't aware, and it was caught at one of our planning board meetings as all the other problems came up in Pulte. But, right, when John left us, you know, he seemed like a very honorable guy, and he had talked to us about his job and all this and that, right? I thought that, you know, we had left a meeting, and I thought they were gonna set up some type of a process to section off a road, divert traffic as they were repairing that part of the road, right, and systematically move on. So you'd have these interim, and they were, because they were asking us for loading areas. Instead, they wanted to use lot number 4 as a big loading area. I thought that was kind of interesting, clear it out and store all their trucks and pipes there.
We didn't think it was a good idea.
Nah.
You probably did, but we
Right.
didn't.
So anyways, I thought that, you know, the winter was there, I thought he was gonna come back and set up a program, because we still have 800, like I said, 850,000 or so of their money. I'm not sure what the cost would be, but I thought they were gonna move along rapidly when we decided we didn't want the inserts that were non-structural inside these pipes. But then I would just hear that.
Is just a point of clarification, just a point of clarification, the $850,000 or $890,000 that you mentioned, is that resides with the town of Norfolk, or is
Correct.
that between the two towns?
Right,
No, it's
Everything's
just
finished
Norfolk.
in
Norfolk.
That's just Norfolk. We only can have jurisdiction over what's in
Okay.
Norfolk.
Because it's, from our perspective, homeowners association, is one homeowners association, and
Was it
we
for
did
both
talk to-
towns?
Excuse me?
Both towns into
Yes.
one?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
okay.
there's one sewage treatment facility.
Right,
for the-
right.
And most of it, the leach field, I guess, all of that is on the Rentham
Rentham,
side.
right.
The waste treatment is all
Yep.
on the Rentham side.
Yep.
However, and when I recently spoke to people at the homeowners association, neighbors that are on the Rentham side, they said that they had they had cameraed their system as well. But at the time, which was now years ago, because they were done, this June will be 4 years. I was the first one to move in on the Norfolk side. It'll be 4 years in June. They were completely built by then. It may not, while Pulte still has a hand in it, it may behoove the Rentham residents to have another camera.
right.
Steady, yeah.
Because this is something, if it's an install problem, it's something that would systematically fail over time. Yeah.
Yeah, because ultimately it would still be our problem, because any homeowner association expense would have to be distributed
Right, yeah.
in 4 ways, I guess.
Right.
Right.
I'll let you-
So I spoke with Ray Goff. Ray, hi, Ken Cook. We spoke on the phone. So you mentioned potential cracks in the sewer pipes as well as the drainage pipes potentially. And do you have any pictures of that? Is that something that?
That's something that
Because-
we're assuming there might be some issues with the sewer pipes, only because of what we found with the drain pipes.
So how do we?
There's no way of knowing what the condition is at this point.
So there's no way to run cameras up those pipes then?
Not in the sewer.
I
No.
don't think so.
The
And-
water pipes, they can do leak tests to see if there's any leakage in the pipes, and they're different, they're not a plastic pipe, they're cast iron. so
Brings
they're
up another
probably-
good point. Yeah, because Ray mentioned that you had asked them to pressure test the water pipes, and they have not come back with that pressure test yet. And I'm having issues with water pressure, and so are many other residents up there. You, Gary, you mentioned you have
It's on the
some,
pressure.
but more
Yeah, there's some
brown
discoloration in the water. from time
discolor.
to time.
Yeah, I have discoloration in my water as well, and I think a couple other people do. So these are all big concerns, and, you know, we're trying to look to the town for, solution, hopefully can work with Pulte. And I know, thing that's concerning to me is that these cracks were discovered in September of last year. Pulte came back to the town with the solution
Yeah.
in December or January for the plastic sleeve solution. The
Right.
town said no, and then 4 months or 5 months have gone by,
Right.
and there's been no other communication to my knowledge.
Exactly.
And so now we're trying, and Ray mentioned you might want to try and get Pulte up here for the next meeting, the homeowner association
Right,
meeting in
yes.
June. I don't know if they'll be agreeable to that, my take would be, Pulte is, I've dealt with them on many issues, because, I've had quite a few problems, mostly related to the outside of the house, with Pulte, and they will really, they'll just stalemate, they'll just kind of punt and keep.
Well, they've
hoping
probably
that it
already
goes-
done the analysis to see, match up the 850,000 of bond as compared to refixing the piping and repaving and second coating the road. And perhaps if the math doesn't work, I don't know what type of organization they are, right? To just walk away, which is why the board here, and of course, they did come for a bond request a few times when we had, in theory, well more than what we needed, the 850. And we decided not to release it, and it's good that we didn't. We actually didn't release the lots you lost until way at the end, when that Mike Mastriani, whatever his name is, came in, only because of the way the whole construction process went. And all the problems during construction that were found, and they kept repeating the same process they were doing, so it's been really a chase the whole time.
So my question would just be, so what is the next, what are the next steps? I mean, how can we get Pulte to kind of come to the table, or at least move the process along? Because as Gary mentioned, he moved in 4 years ago. The road is in pretty, you're driving over sewer covers. It's been like that for 4 years. I never anticipated ever, and I moved in shortly after Gary, that it's been 4 years. I figured this would have been done a year or two ago, because like you mentioned, I thought they were going to do it in stages and put the top coat on, and that's what Pulte told me when I got the contract. Of course,
Betsy, is that a tripartite bond or is it a cash bond, do you know?
I am not sure.
Right here, well, I would like to go, if it's a tri-party, Ray, I would like to have town council. My understanding is if you have a bond in place, or a tri-party agreement, we're allowed to go in there with justification and raise the existing bond amount, or whatever they have secured by collateral, right? If we could do that, I think just by what we're seeing right now with the pictures of the drainage, we're well within our rights to go petition the bank and get an increase on that bond amount.
Maybe get a little leverage over them.
While we're looking into that, meanwhile, we will ask them to attend our next meeting. And at that time, we'd like to ask them to lay out a plan of action with a time frame and a schedule. We can't guarantee that they'll do that. They could be, they could stalemate if they wanted to, but meanwhile, if we are also looking into the bond and looking to potentially increase that, that's sort of coming at it from both sides, if you will. I think the downside would be is if we can't increase the bond and they continue to stalemate and don't come up with an action plan and do something, our worst case scenario, our only recourse is to pull the bond. And then we've got $850,000 to try and fix the problem, and the town owns trying to fix it.
It's curious that they asked you folks to take over the association at this particular time, right?
Oh, well, it happens to be.
It's overdue.
They sold all the houses, so then
Right,
that
right.
was in the contract. Once they sold all the
Yeah,
houses,
see,
then we
that's when we
take it
do
over.
these lots.
But
That's
what
what I was
Pulte said at the
thinking.
last
Lots,
meeting,
lots, even though we
homeowners
have the bond.
association, Pulte said they're working on a second solution. And I said to them, how many solutions can there be? I said, you came to the first one, you suggested the first one, it didn't work. I said, that was 4 months ago. He goes, well, our engineers are still working on it, is what he said at the meeting. And I'm like, that's
The
not
road
acceptable.
supervisor was going to be coming before the planning board just to go over the options with the board, because it's the planning board that makes the decision on which is the way to correct it, right? So I guess the best thing to do is just ask them.
Yeah, we'll have them here and we'll
Have them
ask
for the
them.
meeting, ask them to go over the issues with the road and, right, see what they say. If they
I
don't
guess-
come, then that probably would say something in itself.
Yeah, the worst case scenario, I think, for the homeowners is that this drags on, goes into court, you guys get the money, but then, by the time you start thinking, these roads might not be finished for another 3 years.
Worst case is the pipes collapse.
Well, that too.
People have to move out of their houses.
Yeah. Well, that's,
Right, yeah, the fuck.
Drainage is one thing, but sewer is even worse. I mean,
Right,
That's needed.
yeah.
Live without that.
yeah, so what is
too.
the solution for that then, Walter? How are we ever going to know if those sewer pipes are cracked?
You have to open the road.
So when you're digging
They've
up for
opened
the
it up,
drainage
right?
pipes, the sewer pipes are right next to them, and you're gonna be
I
able
don't
to see
think so,
them?
no.
I think they're laid out in different trenches, right?
Yeah, they're a different part of the road, and a
But
different
that was
elevation. too.
part of the plan we were looking for them was maybe some spot checks, right? So then maybe not
But
dig
that
up
is
the whole
a,
road, but
that
spot
is
checks.
a great
and-
question. How do we check the piping in in the sewer
The
system.
meeting, at the association meeting, Pulte said that, the town asked them to dig up part of the road. They did. They said they didn't find anything. I mean, that's what Pulte was coming, just so you guys know. They're coming in front of all the homeowners, right, Gary? And they're like,
Right, we were-
we dug it up,
discussion.
Yeah.
and there was,
Come and
we didn't
present
find
that
any
to us
problems.
and
And then I
show
brought
us
up the
and-
fact that there was cracks, and that they essentially admitted that there were a few cracks, and they rejected.
Did they say few?
They
But their story that they told me at the homeowners association last week is different than what you just said. At the homeowners association, I asked them specifically if, I thought they could measure out, based on what the camera had recorded, they could measure out to a failure point. And they were going to dig and find that failure point. And then look at what it's sitting on, look at some other circumstances as they're opening that up. They said that they did, but I thought you said earlier, they just dug randomly down in the road. There wasn't a crack.
They picked two random spots, and they both happened to be okay, and we looked at, and not to say that they don't know a couple of parts of the road where they're sure it was done right and they went there, who's to say?
But clearly, someone from Norfolk
Right.
has to be there to observe what's going on. They just can't dig it up and say they've looked and it's okay. I mean,
Yeah,
that's-
but-
They haven't come to the board and presented those findings. There was maybe an on-site meeting, but they have not come and
Yeah,
presented
there are
those.
probably safe areas in the pipe where they know for a long distance there's no breaks.
Right.
But what they told me at the meeting was they dug in an area, there was a break, everybody was looking at the break and no one could determine root cause, which is totally different than what actually happened. Okay.
The pictures don't
So
lie.
I would have them dig in the area of a break to see if we can determine what the root cause is.
I'd like to have someone other than, I know the DPW director was asked to go out there. I was never asked. It's not like I was on vacation, but I was never asked to go out there. I know John's available most of the time to
Right.
witness this kind of stuff. Walter, you're available
Yeah.
too.
Yep.
So it would be nice if the planning board was invited to come and witness this stuff. That would certainly help the situation. I will call John tomorrow
Okay.
and try to set something up and maybe get him and, folks that want to come for the next meeting, we'll post it. So we'll know that it's on the agenda, where it's on the agenda, and we can have a conversation in June.
Yep. How's that sound?
Bob McGee's role as.
Well, we need a solution presented to us first, but ultimately, we would consult with Bob and make sure that he's in agreement with whatever solution, if all seems to be going that direction. And of course, if they have a solution, we would look to have him help out with the inspections and oversight.
We also do have a town engineer that has been called upon in this situation where we had a previous issue, and so they helped us out also. So I would suggest that we get them
Yeah, we might even
involved,
have
too.
them inspect instead of Bob, but either way, there would be somebody representing us and the town to do the inspecting the whatever solution it is that we agree upon.
Mm-hmm.
So the pipes didn't fail immediately, it took time for the pipes to fail. So if they were to go in right now and replace everything, probably why they wanted to do the sleeve, there's almost no risk to them because nothing's going to fail. And it was mostly, now we're at a point where cars and small vehicles are driving over the road, whereas before there was large construction equipment. But from time to time, heavy equipment will go over the road, so maybe it's even a longer duration. It just seems to me in my mind, they could do the exact same thing all over again and say, see, it works, everything's fixed. And you could scope, you could slide the cameras down, you're not gonna find any breaks. 2 years from now, 10% failure, 4 years from now, 20% failure. How do you know? Is there a test that you would do after everything's completed? Or are they just following
You mean
procedures?
if they replace all the drain pipe?
Yeah.
There's gonna be someone there to watch them all the time.
Someone wants-
I mean, it's not rocket science to lay drain pipe. So
Well,
all we have to do is, they've earned the right to have, and I think Bob get into an inspector for a while there anyway, 8 hours a day.
Right.
Have someone check every single thing before the pipes are put in and then when they're connected and backfilled.
John, am I recalling correctly that one of the issues was that these trenches would cut through ledge and then the
They
ledge,
fill it with ledge.
the ledge was chopped up and in the process was used to backfill, and so
Right.
consequently, instead of
Right.
sand or something that would absorb the shock a little bit, you've got sharp rocks sitting there
And
waiting.
over time, shale turns to powder. So when you've got the pressure from the road traffic and you've got a base under the pipe, those pipes don't have any give, obviously, right? So you've got a depression in one part of the pipe because the shale's turning to powder, that's enough to crack it right there. And then you get the issue if those bells aren't connected right and secured right and have rubber gaskets on them, then those things start to loose, and then if they're loose, there are more chance to fail. And then when you're backfilling it after it's installed, in theory properly, you have to install it with the right material. And I think Bob McGee said 7 or 8 times he went out there and he'd tell them to get the sand on site, and they'd bring a pile of sand, put it on site. He'd show up again and they're filling the trenches with
Crushed.
the ledge again. Don't forget there were 3 different road companies that did that road. The last one had never done a road, which is they had brand new equipment, but they'd never done a road. So
Was
it's
that
really,
Princess?
yes, so it's really not encouraging.
There's one after Princess.
Was there one after them or maybe a 4th one?
Well, the difference, it sounds like as well, on the Rentham side, they
Grab your
didn't
mic.
have to blast the ledge.
Microphone.
On the Rentham side, they didn't have to blast ledge away, so they wouldn't have recovered ledge, crushed it down, and
Right.
poured it back
Right.
in.
Right.
And that's probably
Yeah.
why their
Completely
roads are
different
better over there.
landscape up there, so.
Okay.
But
So-
it's still, your advice to them to take a look is probably still good advice.
Yeah. So keep an eye on our agenda. Our agenda will indicate whether or not they've agreed to come. For the 13th of June is when we would be meeting, and that's when we would ask them to come and attend.
What if they don't agree, Michelle? What if they say, no, we're not, you know, I mean,
Yeah, we can't
How-
force
how
them, so
long-
again, if it looks like they're not, and like John suggested, we'll be researching the bond at the same time. And so if we have to start going more of the legal process of enforcing it from a monetary perspective, we'd go that route.
can you stop them from building in other areas of the state by filing anything? No.
No.
No. All we have for them, the only leverage we have over them right now is the $850,000 that we hold
Yep.
of their money. That's the leverage that we have. And if we can capitalize on that and make it a higher dollar value, that
We
would
could
be-
make that a higher dollar value
That'd be
with
great.
with backup. That, to me,
That
would
would be some
give
good leverage.
incentive to
Yeah.
rent committee to do it.
But you really have no
Right.
estimate of what, you haven't had an independent contractor come out and say, this is how much it would cost to dig up this road again and look at all these pipes. You don't, you have no idea whether it's $1 million or $2 million.
Couple of $1 million.
I think if we don't get response from them, and we find that we can raise the bond, we would probably quickly work with an engineer and just do it, and we'll just make some assumptions and do a quick takeoff, and we could quickly estimate how much we want to increase the dollar value to cover sort of our maximum exposure, our maximum risk. So we can do that quickly, but let's see if they're willing to work with us.
Okay. All right, as long as, yeah, and we can, you know, if we don't see anything in the June meeting, then what would be the next step for the homeowners association if they don't agree, as far as you guys will take it from there and.
Yeah,
as
give
long
a
as it's
call
on-
to Ray/Betsy, and we'll.
And that would
give
happen
you some
right away.
Feedback about the bond
You
stuff.
know, hopefully you could get right on that quickly, because my concern really, and I think a lot of the homeowners, is that things just keep getting delayed and delayed, and the longer it delays, the longer, you know, it's been a long time.
Yep,
Yep.
totally
And-
understand.
Understand.
You know, from a homeowner standpoint, I think as long as you guys, you just acknowledge that, you know, it's a bad situation. I know you guys are gonna try and escalate it as best you can, and hopefully we can get some action taken. And whatever you need from the homeowners association, if you need everybody here for that meeting with Pulte, if that's helpful, you know, we'll try and rally the troops. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but, probably to make sure everybody's on the same page.
I think if I were you folks, I'd be doing a little bit of research where you're gonna be owning those sewer pipes. Yeah, go look at some of the possible solutions where you could review those to make sure that they're all in working order before you accept everything. And I'm not sure how that would be done, but there's gotta be a way that the piping and well, I would guess you're gonna have a review of the sewer treatment plant anyway before you accept it, make sure it's functioning right. You gotta find out a way, if there's any way for them to check the flow through the pipes to make sure that it's proper. I'm not sure if they can do any type of an air test or something, I'm not sure.
There are force mains over there, right?
Right,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think so, and on front.
Well, I'm
But Bob
thinking
McGee might be a
force mains
good
might be
resource
the
for
spot.
that information, for people that would do that type of work, or no?
I'm not sure Bob would know,
Right, no,
deal with that.
He wouldn't? No.
No.
I'm not sure. We have some engineers on the association, but, we're We're gonna have to. we're gonna
Ray,
have
how
to
about the
deal
Board of Health? Would anyone on the Board of Health have any,
We can talk to Wade,
Yeah,
our health agent Wade.
he may have some ideas. Not that he's ever come across this either, but certainly a new one for most of us.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, stay in touch, and we will as well. So on a different but very similar related issue, and it's just basically under new business, many of you may have seen that Ray reached out to Lou Petrozzi for Fern Ridge Estates to try and get an update from him as to where he was at regarding the remaining work he has to do in his development. So, we could similarly have Lou in to report on outstanding work and what his plan is, but since it's been a matter of time, I had talked to Ray this week about possibly pulling together a summary list of where we last left off with Lou, sorry. Because again, like these gentlemen were saying, so much time goes on. We have new members now. This is a very similar situation, a development that's been under construction for a number of years. Problems that we've found with some of the infrastructure, construction. We've asked for remedies, we've kind of agreed on solutions, and then just a lot of stalling in terms of getting it done. Lots of reasons why it can't get done.
well, it's a standoff. I mean,
Yeah, it's a
essentially,
standoff.
he's just standing, telling us he's not gonna do this stuff.
Well, he's asked for bond releases
Yeah.
for things that, it may
We
not,
said no.
yeah,
He owes money to his review account, so the work can be checked by our engineer, and he owes the back money on the plowing and
Plowing,
sanding.
he still hasn't paid that,
He
huh?
refused
No.
to pay those, but he wants his bond release.
Yeah, he wants relief.
So he's sort of holding us hostage and saying, until they agree to release my money, I won't agree to do any of the work that's outstanding.
and worse yet, he's holding the homeowners in that neighborhood hostage, which really is a
Well,
travesty.
Very
similarly,
similar situation
Michelle,
as well.
similarly, with Fox Run, is the bond that we're holding sufficient for us to finish the work if we had to?
Remember we looked at that, Walter?
I
I
think,
think it's
that
over
is-
80,000, and I think when we had Bob McGee look at it, we had well enough. As a matter of
That's
fact,
what
I
we,
think.
I think we double, triple checked on that.
Right, I think I last time had mentioned, I thought.
I believe it's $142,000 that we have in
That
place, yeah.
I was in favor last time of releasing some of the bond because it was so much in excess, but, I mean, he has to do what everybody else does and put money in his review account, so his work as he does it can be checked by the
Yep.
engineers for the
Yep.
town
yep,
and pay for his plowing bill like everybody else does.
yep.
But he refused to do that.
We did have an engineer look at some of his work that was done. We found deficiencies with it. We told him, you have to have these deficiencies corrected. Some he has done, some he has not.
It does beg this larger question similar to Pulte. At what point do we pull the plug and stop trying to work with the developer and
Yep.
start using the
Yep.
bond money to
Yep.
complete ourselves? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. I don't know who we go to for advice on that. Because it's a huge decision. It's a really huge decision.
There's a legal costs involved
Exactly.
with pulling bonds,
Exactly.
which
It's going to eat away some of
eat
that
away
money.
some of that money.
Mhm.
And then there's a manpower question of,
Well, yeah, and then
Who's
it's
gonna
town
do it? Who's
resources,
gonna
or
manage
then we're
it?
gonna
Yeah.
have to hire a third party.
bingo, and you have to
Right,
hire
there's the
somebody
cost
to
of
do the
construction,
actual
but
work
does
and
that doesn't really,
budget,
does it
et
include
cetera.
project management fees, soft costs, any soft costs? No, so it's all just direct cost, and so that's the problem too. We still have a lot of indirect costs that go along with
That's right.
implementing a project like that. So it's
I'll take
never
it
a
that
good
that's never been done
situation.
before. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I don't know
Well-
if we've ever pulled a bond.
We've pulled a few, but it's always when the builder has gone bankrupt.
Okay.
Then it becomes a much easier process. I think, and I don't want to tell this gentleman, because I'm not sure, but I think if we decide to pull these bonds, I think it's not a short process.
No, it's not.
And
No.
of course, they have legal staff on
Yes,
staff.
they
and we to
they have
pay
a deep
outside
bench, yeah.
Right, so it's nothing you want to do when they're foreclosed on. It's simple. The bank is dying to work with you to finish their obligation, but I don't think we've ever pulled an active bond by someone that was still in business.
I don't know of any.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think we'll have a good idea if you step John to come in with the neighbors and go over his plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's for
Believe he'll
Pulte, but
come
we're
in.
dealing with the same stuff with Lou.
Right.
It's the same situation with Lou, of this stalemate, this promises that never get followed through on, and like you say, in the end, it's the homeowners that suffer, just like at Fox Run, it's the
Yeah.
homeowners who
Yeah.
are suffering.
Every day they drive down that street.
They don't have their trees and
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we have an obligation to them
Complete
to help finish this
to
thing.
finish the development,
I
right?
know.
Yeah, it's sort of stuck between a
Rock
rock
and
and
a-
a hard place.
Yeah, rock and a cracked pipe.
So I'll reach out to Lou and say that he's cordially invited to come to the next planning board meeting for cake and ice cream.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Minus the cake and ice cream.
Yeah, I mean, every time Lou comes in, it just turns into an argument. He just says, I'm not doing anything until you guys budge. We say we're not gonna budge. We yell at each other for a few minutes and then he storms out of the room. I just, I don't enjoy it personally.
You'll hear from my lawyer.
Pretty much is it.
He says, you'll hear from my lawyer, and
That's
then he
right.
leaves.
That's right.
When was the last time he came in?
Oof.
Oh, it's
3 months
months,
ago?
it's
Four-
7, 8,
3 or 4
9 months ago, I don't know.
Longer than
Long
that?
time ago.
Fall. I think it was the fall.
Yeah, I don't think it was
Right
quite
before
that long
winter.
ago.
At least 6 months.
It was right before winter because there were a lot of it had to do with street trees.
We were
and then
trying to get them in
remember
before
he
the
delayed,
winter.
and then he couldn't buy them now
And
because
then-
now they were just gonna.
And there was the drought and
Yeah.
and the cat ate his homework.
Well, we actually had finalized the whole tree plan.
Yes, with work,
With
hard
site-
work with the neighbors.
Right.
Worked hard with the
Hard work.
neighbors, got something that everyone seemed to like, and
Yeah.
And then time went by and decided it was too late, he never did it.
Well, he's holding that hostage too. He's not gonna give them what they want until he gets what he wants.
it's nice.
So, I mean, we can invite him in, but I just feel like we need a different strategy because it gets us nowhere. It just gets us nowhere.
Well, now we have Kevin. We'll have Kevin deal with him.
Just lock us in a room to get it figured out.
If we could get the bond so that it's able to be increased, that would be huge
Sure.
On Pulte,
for anybody.
on this one too?
On any-
Do we know, have we looked into that for Fox, I mean, for Fern Ridge?
We never looked into having his bond increased. That's something that Ray can bring through town council and they can find out.
So similarly, while we're looking into Pulte's, let's look into Lou's and
I
see
know in
if,
some subdivisions I did
Maybe we
years
get two
ago,
for the
there was
price of
always a covenant in the tri-party that said that the bond not only could be lowered upon performance of work, it could be increased
right.
for any reason that was deemed justifiable.
Well, the reasons here would be we would need to pay for all the soft indirect costs, and we would also need to pay for legal fees. This is on the Fern Ridge one. On Pulte, we'd need similarly plus to cover the cost of work, because we don't think 850 is potentially enough to cover the cost
We
of work.
pay prevailing wage on subdivision work.
Yep.
So where these builders are putting in roads at
They're just open.
regular rates,
Yeah, open
we're
shop.
paying more than twice the rate for prevailing rate. I think when we do the bonds, I think when Bob calculates the bonds, they use the state specs for prevailing wages.
They do.
Correct, but still, it normally doesn't work out to be advantageous. Like Michelle said, we have all these soft costs and engineering, supervision of the whole thing, coordination, so.
Absolutely.
Testing, inspection,
Yeah.
legal, all that stuff. And often can be 20-25% of the, in addition, cost, so. All right. It's bad news. Before we, there's a open space and rec plan letter? Didn't we do that last time?
Yeah, I
Didn't that
don't
go
know.
in-
You and I went through that. I just wanted to put it on the agenda just so, as a notice that it went out to Gino so that got put in. So, Walter, you had some comments on the open space rec plan. I did myself. Gino incorporated that. So with that, we put a letter together just supporting it.
Good, okay.
And one other new business was raised by Kevin as a question. I floated it out to all board members in an email, was this idea of a Facebook page, Facebook group page for the Norfolk Planning Board. I had voiced the things that kind of leapt to the top of my head when I was looking at it, which included open meeting law is a very slippery slope in terms of what kind of questions and conversations we can have, and I've actually done a little bit more reading into it this past week. Deliberation about an open hearing can be considered that even if someone were to make a comment to the planning board and nobody answers it, that can be considered deliberation. So I think we have to be careful about the open meeting law. So the examples that I saw in Rentham and Sherburne, was it? Tended to be a lot of posting of hearings next, when they were continued to, or agendas, or maybe even meeting minutes. So to what extent that might be helpful.
Well,
My
that's what we
other-
do on our website, right?
Right, and so then my other question was from an administrative perspective, is it just another administrative burden? Who owns that? If people do comment, you know,
Not doing it.
yeah. So I don't, open for discussion.
She only has 16 hats, and I don't know why she can't take one more.
Those were just my thoughts
She might
when I
just be
looked at it,
lazy,
but
I
other
don't know.
folks might have, Kevin, maybe you said you'd heard from
Yeah.
residents in your conversations.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I heard during the campaign process is that some people felt a little bit disconnected and didn't know where to find the information that they were looking for. They didn't have the time to come to meetings or to watch a full YouTube video of the meetings that we were having. And they were looking for another means to be able to get that information. I had seen that there were a few other towns who were utilizing Facebook for that means. Sherborne, Rentham, I think Norton, Bedford were two other ones I found. But Michelle was right. At the core, essentially, they were just using it
As
for
a
the posting.
Bulletin board, like, yeah.
Correct.
Right.
To the point of the comments, 3 of those 4 actually made it so that nobody could comment.
Oh, interesting. And
Essentially,
that's probably because of the open meeting law.
Correct.
That's exactly why.
Yes, because
it's
any
considered
comments-
deliberation. Yeah.
Right,
I
and
think the
any
town put-
comments are subject to, if there's a public
Public
records
information,
request.
right. So if somebody wanted to request, information request of public records, you'd have to go back on every
Right.
posting on Facebook and gather all those for a public information request.
Yeah.
So it becomes a bit cumbersome.
Interesting.
I'll just jump in. It's funny that you mentioned this Facebook thing, because 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a conversation with the town clerk, and I said, what about Facebook? What about, trying to work with that as a media to get information out there? And she was, don't do it. I warn you not to do it. There's so many pitfalls with Facebook. She mentioned that, it's a public record at that point. You have to keep records of everything that's being said on Facebook. There's some towns that now hired companies to catalog, to archive everything that has been said on Facebook, because I guess it goes away after a certain amount of time. So now they have to keep records of that forever. So she just said, I would highly recommend staying away from it. And if you were really, desirous of doing something on Facebook, make sure there's no ability to comment. And that looks like what the other towns have done.
Some of them did, because I started to see some with comments, and I thought, oh, that's like, I don't want to get into that, because
Yeah,
that's when it
that's it.
starts really getting
absolutely.
nasty.
Yeah, and certainly Facebook is not the place to gather information. There are certainly other mediums that are much better. I mean, just sitting and watching one of these meetings might be very informative to some people that are looking to find things out. But, the other thing is, maybe there is a way that people who are interested in a project could contact maybe the planning office and talk with the planner or staff and find out what exactly is going on a specific project. I field those calls on a regular basis. I think when you were running, Kevin, I think I fielded a few calls from you about different issues that came up. And I think that would be the proper channel to follow, is just to talk with the staff that is there. Betsy can probably tell you more details than I can about so many different things that have happened in this town in the last 15 years. So I would suggest that people who are interested, start there. And if you're not satisfied with that, then, maybe even attend a meeting and ask the planning board what is going on and how are things happening. I know individual planning board members, they have their phone numbers out there. If there was a question that maybe one of them could answer, that's another way to do it. Sometimes it's just picking up the phone, or just, finding out who's the right person to talk to. Email to Betsy. We certainly, we always respond to those. So there's certainly methods. It's probably not the easiest thing for people to do, and I appreciate that. I understand that, sometimes it's hard to, in the middle of your day, to remember, oh yeah, I did have a question about that Fox Run subdivision, and I want to.
Does our planning board page have both of your contact info on
Yes.
there? Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah, there's
And
a
we-
link to our email addresses as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, because
Can you-
that'd be a really
can-
helpful
can-
thing.
Are you still on the computer?
Yep.
Can you put it up there?
Sure.
The other thing that,
Wow, since I've been-
the other thing that's happened is there's been a lot of discussion, I think, during the campaign about 40Bs. And one of the 40B applicants had asked me to put up everyone's application materials. Amy in our office was able to do that, so all 7 of the 40Bs that are up or in process or in some form of process, that information is sitting on the town's website.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Betsy and I also talked about, sort of early on, I think it sort of fell to the side, but taking applications that we receive and putting those materials on the website and having that available for people to look at. So there are certainly things that we can do to improve. Is that thing on?
Oh, yeah.
I would suggest that you folk,
Oh,
Greg
so I'm
and
like, I'm
Kevin,
looking at it, I'm like, why
probably
is
the best
nobody
thing you
looking
can
at
do to
the
protect
screen?
yourself is
like
get a
those
copy
glasses.
of the open meeting laws from the
Yeah,
Attorney
which,
General.
we usually get a
And read
copy when
them.
we sign on the open
And
meeting
believe
law.
me, there are folks
I know I have a
that
copy
watch
at
that.
home.
Kevin has
Kevin
a
has
copy.
one.
Turn you in
Greg
once
has
you
a
violate
copy.
it. Many times it's just a lack of not thinking about
Do you
it.
need a
Right.
copy?
And it's very important. So there's a,
No, I haven't.
there's an ethics
Yes.
test
Oh,
they
you
give
did. I was
us,
gonna say
required
Kevin.
every
I gave
few
Kevin a
years that
copy.
you take online.
Mhm.
And then that's one section, the ethics division, and then there's the Attorney General's division, which is involved with open meetings. So once we have, and Rick come out of the bat talking about all of the cooperation with the residents and all this about what they want. And my first impulse was to say, well, the residents really don't dictate planning or what we do, right? And the second thing was, and I didn't say it because I knew that the application was being drawn, we're in the middle of a public meeting process. Anything to do with the public meeting, any back and forth or any new information has to be in a setting where everybody's available to listen to it, you know? You can't do it off on your own, so they actually went off on a little tangent. They weren't exactly correct in doing that, but like I said, the application was gonna be withdrawn, so it didn't matter. But you have to be careful just to make sure you don't get yourself, because sometimes good intentions, right?
Yeah.
They can stick you, so just be careful.
And as I understand it, even an email you may send to Betsy asking a question about something, that's a public record. So anything you write to Ray or to Betsy or one of us or whatever, or to all of us or whatever, that all becomes public record.
Right, all of your emails that have to do with town government all become
Subject.
subject to being a public information request to be drawn out.
Got it.
It's happened plenty of times, actually, Rick.
So anyway, here's the website. What,
Zoning board website, and they've got all the 40B projects
Neat,
um,
that's great.
that are either
Pending or,
pending or under review or not not submitted to the town yet, but submitted to the state. Are they?
Yeah, so any information that we did receive, we put it up there so
Yeah,
that folks could get a chance
We can start doing
to.
the same with the planning
pour through it.
board. We can start doing that with planning board applications.
Hmm.
so we'll go to the planning.
whatever, meaning whatever's like a current hearing. So right
Yeah.
now, for instance, we'd have Norway Farms and
Norway
194
Farms,
Main.
Right, and we can
Right.
put those up on there.
That's a good idea.
YouTube thing is pretty good where you can fast forward through the meeting, so I get your finger and I get rid of all the ones I don't care to and just focus in on.
Yeah.
Not only it's pretty easy to
Yeah.
find the meeting you want to look at.
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
true on
Yep.
YouTube and stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So this is the planning board page, right?
The planning
Yes.
board page.
Betsy and Ray right up top, yeah.
Yep.
There's a link to.
So you just click on us and boom, you get send an email to us.
Yep,
Right,
yep.
right, yep.
Town calendar is where you'll find all of the agendas that are posted. The planning board.
As well as minutes.
And you can
As well
subscribe
as
there
minutes.
too, and have it emailed to you whenever something new is posted, which
Correct.
is very helpful.
So if you're
Yes, and you can have it
interested-
sync with your calendar for meetings and stuff, like all of, my calendar always shows the planning board meetings. I don't
Remember
even
Sean
have to put
Dooley's
it in.
doing? Remember?
What?
Sean Dooley, when he was clerk, put that into effect, that if you wanted to follow a hearing or be notified when a certain board met,
Yeah,
that
you
you
can
just subscribe,
Yeah.
and when he
That's
changed
great.
the software, anything that was involved, you automatically get updated, so you didn't have to worry about checking when a meeting was going on.
Yeah.
Love automation.
For Rick.
Go to planning board, you can subscribe to email alerts. Anytime I post a meeting or an agenda, residents will get an email alert. And then all the meeting minutes, for all of our, meetings are posted here.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like that satisfies all of the needs or the benefits that would come along with
Right,
a
without
Facebook
violating
page.
any kind of open meeting
Right.
law or,
Right,
you know,
Yeah.
public record
right.
issues.
Aside from
Avoiding
the
this.
interface that everybody is so used to using 45 times a day as it stands right now.
That's it?
Our generation, my daughter in high school tells me it's not cool. The kids don't use it anymore.
Facebook?
Facebook.
Already?
Oh, that's for old people, that's for
Young
She
old
says it's for
people.
old people.
Oh,
The
boy.
kids
Yeah.
do not use it anymore.
They're in
that's what
Snapchat,
That was
right?
quick.
Snapchat, Instagram.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, they're in all that
Doesn't
stuff.
take too long.
There's a new one every week. Every week there's something new.
Yeah.
Yes. She says Facebook is for people like you, Mom. I said, oh, thanks.
Yeah, old people, right.
Yeah.
Well, the core need
But-
to seem to be that that stuff is accessible and it's out there and people know where it is. And I think that highlighting it in this format is good. And then the addition of the
Yeah,
open
we'll
plans
start
that we are, the
putting that-
open meetings that we have going on will be
Yeah, that'd be cool.
bringing that full circle.
Yeah.
It's easy enough.
And just calling us, you know, that's really the,
Oh, you're old. You're so old.
I am so old-fashioned, but just call.
He's old.
Say, hey, what's up? You know, what do you do there?
I should have brought in. We found a box at work of these. They were at the time state of the art. Key security devices. You know, now you have swipe cards or
Yeah.
tap cards and stuff like that. And there were these actual key devices that you'd plug into the lock set, and it had this really fancy gold-plated brass cover on it with this fancy emblem. And you lift it up, and the security was an old rotary dial on a telephone, so you would key in your code.
I'm
whatever
pressing
your
the
code
button, but
was.
it's not
That's the button, But it
working.
was the old rotary. It
That's
is
awesome.
hilarious.
Why'd they put them all in a circle?
So, and that's used to actually be a state-of-the-art technology. So
Yeah,
funny.
donate those to the Smithsonian,
I
right?
know.
Yeah.
There's a large portion of the population that probably wouldn't be able to figure that out.
I know. They'd be like, what is that thing?
Yeah,
How
they'd
do
be
you
pressing
use
them
it?"
numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
They
not
don't work.
working.
Anyway, any other new business or correspondence before we go to meeting minutes?
None for me.
Everyone's good? Okay, so we have meeting minutes from April 11th, and I believe they were
Walter
reviewed.
reviewed them.
Yeah, Jennifer is not here. She would normally make the motion, so I'll make the motion to accept the minutes of meeting from planning board meeting of April 11th, 2017.
Do you have a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So if we don't have any other business, we can move to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Before 9 o'clock. Second?
All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.